The farm was started, it's the third generation I am, and my son would be the fourth. We used to milk dairy cows. We were milking dairy since 1966 to 1998 is when we retired from the milk business. And at that time we started raising Holstein heifers for replacements and selling to the States and to Mexico. We were between 11 and 1200 when BSE started. And it's been kind of downhill ever since. We haven't bought any more since, but we've just been trying to sell. Maybe 1% of all our sales was just local, that was all. We would have 450 acres of corn silage, another 400 or 500 acres of hay to do. So yes, you didn't have the milking, but you were still busy.
Prior to BSE, we were doing, about $1 million a year of sales, and then all of a sudden when your market shut off to the States and Mexico, there is no income. And I've actually had checks cross our desk for $2.01 for you send an animal to the sale barn, and you get $2.01. That doesn't even take the two of us to Tim Hortons for 2 cups of coffee.
Well, you just go to your store. If you buy a steak, what is it, $6 or $7, $8 a steak? You can buy the whole cow.
You can see if your income is basically nil, the bills keep coming in. We're in depression prices as far as the cattle are going, but unfortunately nothing else is in depression prices. The cost of fuel goes up, the cost of hydro goes up. Everything else that crosses the desk as far as bills have probably gone up in the last year, or at least have stayed the same, certainly have not gone down, but yet your income has been reduced to basically zero. So needless to say, once you get into your 16th month of this, you have to decide what you're going to do, and I guess that's why we decided we had to have this sale and change direction.
2 cents a pound, 2 cents a pound. Sent this farm 6 feet underground.
There's a lot of things farmers, are having to look at and say, gosh, is it
all worth it?
Is it worth it? What am I going to get in the end? What am I going to have to retire on when, I have to put all this money out and I'm not really getting, at this point in time, anything back in.
'Cause who can live on just 2 cents a pound?
Chris Moore from Kinburn, Ontario works his family farm as well as part-time at a local tractor dealership, which is also another victim of these troubled times. He has been a friend of mine since I was 8 years old, and I wanted to see how he was coping through this difficult period.
Last year my corn, a third of the check I got went to drying with the higher fuel prices. I don't think there's much of a future in cash crops either. Your return keeps going down while your inputs keep going up. And your profit margin keeps getting smaller and smaller. And corn, it's already gone to the other side where you're losing money. A lot of guys that grew a lot of corn can't afford to put in a crop this year. They didn't make enough on their corn to pay for seed. Probably a quarter of my paycheck from my off-farm job goes to keeping the farm. And everything from the farm goes right back in just to keep the bills paid. We're beef, cash crop with sheep, and probably moving more towards sheep and less cash crop and beef, just due to prices and economics. I think the beef industry in Canada, if we don't get more packing plants and more markets, will disappear. Honestly, over the next few years, the consumer won't have the choice to love Canadian beef anymore. That'll be supplied by box meat, probably from Argentina, Brazil, Peru, which aren't so strict on health regulations. Most guys I know don't want handouts. It's there and you really have to apply for it, because if you don't have any money. So you apply for it, but we don't want that. We want markets for our animals, and it's wasting taxpayers' money to give us handouts. You're farther ahead to hire lawyers to go to the World Trade Organization for us. You're farther ahead to send trade delegations to markets that maybe we could have. that's money better spent. U.S. Very heavily subsidized. European Union very heavily subsidized. And the rest of the country stand up for their farmers, whereas won't subsidize us, which is to me a good thing. But unfortunately, they won't stand up for us on the world trade.
The Simpsons, an Ottawa farm family, are my neighbors, and I have known them since I was a young child. Several generations in this family help out with the dairy operation. Bill Simpson, his wife Helen, their 2 sons Gary and Kevin and their wives, plus several grandchildren, work together to get the milking done. Trudy enjoys the farming way of life and wishes to continue it. Her brother Kyle has many interests and isn't sure if dairy farming is one of them.
Do you want to still farm?
Much no money in it. You're always stuck here 24/7. You're losing money, you're not making it. Like call cows, instead of getting money for them, you just have to ship them, you get nothing. There we got like $7 for 3 of them the other day.
$7 for 3 cows? Call cows?
Yeah, we sent them away. So I mean, there's no money, it's cheaper to just sort of get rid of it.
In terms of all the different regulations and bylaws that are hitting the farmers, could you give us one example of one that has impacted your farm?
Biggest one that's going to affect us is our place has a lot of drainage ditches, and they wanted to keep back 50 feet with fertilizer and manure and everything. So I mean, there's 50 feet on every field. What's it going to grow if you don't fertilize it?
So before that, you could go farther along.
Well, we keep in. Yeah. We don't pollute the water, no. But we spread to the edge of the field always.
Right.
And the same with the fertilizer. We put it to the edge of the fields. But our fields are all tiled. I'm just glad we've done as much as we have. Like, we have a concrete manure pit. I don't know if you've seen it out there, round. And when the nutrient management comes along, you're pretty nearly going to have to put in a cement pit.
At your own cost?
Well, they say there's going to be money, but there's no federal money yet. I bet you we're out a little over 100,000. I read a piece in the paper, and a guy went ahead and done it, and now we can't get any money. Once it's done, they won't pay you. And the trouble, if you do it the way they want it, they got to bring an engineer on site, and pretty nearly all your grant money is eat up in engineering fees. So you're almost doing it yourself.
Exactly.
And ours, the engineer told us we'd need about 110-foot pit, so we went to 150 feet, and it's just big enough. We have about 9 months storage, and it's I think it works out to about 0.7 cents a gallon. You know, so it's not too expensive. It costs us 10 or 11,000 a year to empty the pit. But then for what we'd have tied up in machinery, plus your time, it's not too bad a deal. I record the date we sprayed fields, what we sprayed them with, the wind direction, if it was a hot day or a sunny day, or I keep all them records anyway. But I'm not going to want you to keep that in your nutrient management, but it's all the way they're doing it. You can't do that yourself.
Well, so they want you to hire an engineer to do that for you. The paperwork, you mean?
Yeah, the paperwork. You've got to be computer literate for one thing, and I'm not. That's the one thing. They say it's a 2-day course to get certified, and the 1 day is nothing but computers, and that's out of my scope.